All this week on The Link, we are taking a closer look at some of the biggest stories of 2018. In Venezuela, we've seen the political protests, the long lines at banks and grocery stores, the empty shelves, of course. Many Venezuelan farmers say the economic crisis makes it difficult to provide food for the nation, let alone for their own tables. CGTN's Juan Carlos Lamas has that story beyond the headlines.
The sun is rising over his farm in a rural valley in northwestern Venezuela, a couple of hours' drive from the capital. 86-year-old Rafael Farfan is getting ready to go out to the fields he's worked for 5 decades.
I don't have the same strength that I used to have. Working in the fields is hard, and I don't have the proper machinery, so everything we do has to be done by hand.
As hyperinflation in Venezuela climbs to 1,000,000% this year, buying seeds and fertilizer, maintaining equipment and paying wages are all too expensive. Farfan told his 4 farm workers he could no longer afford to pay them. And now he and one of his sons are on their own in the fields.
We produce food just for us to eat. We don't sell our crops anymore. Eating is more important.
The bananas, beans and cassavas they grow go to feed Rafael and his wife, son and 3 other adult children who live on the farm. They depend on it to supplement the government program that delivers a box of food once a month.
It's hard. The government's food box is enough to feed my family for 3 days. The rest of the month we eat what we can get from our crops.
As they wait for the harvest, Farfan says his family tries to set aside enough food for a small meal 2 times a day. Sometimes all they have to stave off hunger is a cup of coffee. The IMF predicts Venezuela's inflation rate will reach 10,000,000% next year. With that kind of massive increase in prices, the Farfan family says it's hard to imagine how they will be able to buy the supplies they'll need just to grow food for themselves. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro has unrolled a new plan to tackle the agricultural crisis. He says the government will invest $1.2 billion toward agricultural projects.
It's important to create a special and specific fund for the entire agricultural sector, a fund exclusively dedicated to the purchase of the necessary seeds, which will allow us to grow what we need from 2018 to 2019.
That plan will come too late for many of the farmers in this small community. Farfan says nearly a quarter of the families in the valley have given up farming and moved away, either to the big city or out of the country. But he says as long as he's got air in his lungs, he's determined to go out to the fields to grow food to put on his family's table. Juan Carlos Lamas, CGTN Manrique, Venezuela.
And as Juan Carlos mentioned, Venezuela's farmers are moving away, but they're not alone. The UN Migration Agency says nearly 2.5 million people have fled Venezuela since 2017. Latin American leaders have been meeting on the crisis, seeking aid from abroad and regulations at home to help those who are fleeing. Most of them head to neighboring Colombia. Though a growing number are also seeking refuge in Chile, Brazil, Peru, and Ecuador. And those last 2 countries have started requiring passports, not just national ID cards, for Venezuelans to enter. Brazil is accepting and housing them for now, a system that looks likely to continue under the incoming President Jair Bolsonaro.